I think we're live. It says we're live. Kevin, I think
I
we're live.
feel I feel very live, so I don't know if that counts for anything or not, but
I don't know. It is very unusual for us to be live on a Thursday night,
it is the Two Bros Wrestling Show on Thursday night. I kind of
special edition, on a
yeah,
very special edition.
I feel like AEW Dynamite over the last month. I'm a little confused about when I'm supposed to be airing, Doug.
Right. Well, I want to mirror my favorite programming, so
It is the Two Bros Wrestling Show on a Thursday night. Thank you all for tuning in on a special night. We apologize for some difficulties that we had, technical difficulties on Sunday that kept this. Yeah, Doug, you've used this excuse before.
it's eventually I will get that tree, get out of that tree and get into a new home. So
You know, you've used that power excuse in the tree enough, Doug. I think it's time to level with the people. So, for those who don't know, and some of you do, we're also musicians. Doug has a studio down there, and Sunday he decided he was going to, have a jam session with Rick Boogs. And next thing you knew, they blow every fuse in the place, and no power, so we had to cancel the show.
true story. We also knocked out the internet for the entire southeastern United States. So sorry about that.
Boogs. But we have regrouped and we're here to talk Money in the Bank
Money.
preview show for this Sunday. And Doug, because we were a couple days late, we actually have a little bit more information than we would have if we'd given this to the folks on Sunday. So,
which was my plan, my sinister plan all along, to make sure we had more information post Raw and NXT. It was all part of my plan.
You executed it excellently, my friend, and that preview is coming up 10 minutes or so. That's our main event topic tonight. But Doug, where it has been a few weeks since we've had the show, we got a lot of news to get into. So what do you say?
Let's do it. Oh, wait, hold on, wait. There we go. Opening bell.
Opening bell. Yes, we do have some news to catch up on, and the best news, the biggest news, is wrestling is back on the road. You can see it. You can buy a ticket and go see it. AEW had their broadcast from Miami last Wednesday night. Of course, they were in Texas last night. SmackDown is live in front of an audience tomorrow night for the return. Goodbye Thunderdome and piped-in crowd noise. Obviously, the pay-per-view we're getting ready to preview here in a few moments is also live in front of an audience. Ring of Honor on Sunday hosted its Best in the World pay-per-view in front of paying customers. MLW had a taping on Saturday night of their annual Battle Riot event, which is going to be their next series of programming that they're airing on their TV show. That was in front of paying customers. Impact is conducting TV tapings this week in Nashville for the first time since the pandemic started with paying customers. So, folks, across the board, that means every company, major company in America has returned to live paying audiences, which is a fantastic thing for wrestling fans. And Doug, in our region, it means opportunities to see live wrestling too, because SmackDown is going to be or maybe it's a super show, Raw and SmackDown are going to be in Kentucky. And it was announced this week that the Extreme Rules pay-per-view is actually taking place in Columbus this year, and that's going to be at the very end of September. So gosh, that's actually pretty tempting to go see a live pay-per-view after not having anything live to see. So wrestling's back. Buy your tickets. Support. Give some legitimate reactions to this, what we've been witnessing on TV that has been so devoid of that energy that the that third person, that third element brings. Doug, I'm super excited about this, and I think it's already with the AEW shown that it's brought a new energy to be in front of a new town.
Yes, absolutely.
In related news, and then I bring everybody up just to bring you down. But Japan has declared a state of emergency, and it is affecting the Olympics, the Olympic Games, which did not take place in 2020. They're hosting this summer. There's a lot riding on that, obviously, for a lot of folks involved, for Peacock and NBC Universal that staked their whole business plan on Olympic coverage. And the Olympics are still moving forward, but the state of emergency means that it will be doing so without crowds, which, if you think of New Japan Pro Wrestling, they had crowds in 2020. They were able to return to live audiences prior to America being able to do so. There are no shows currently affected by the state of emergency. It's basically on Tokyo and the games, but if this expands in Japan, it's very possible that New Japan will start to be affected as well. And I know we've mentioned it, Doug, several times to folks, and I know we're not here to preach, this is not a health program trying to get people to do the right things, but we want nice things for folks. It's a cautionary tale. If Japan has to roll back what they're doing, we all need to do what we should be doing so that those tickets we have for our upcoming wrestling events, whatever they may be, we actually get to have those.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was watching the Dynamites with live crowds again, going, there's a lot of people really close together with no masks.
It is a bit of a cautionary tale.
But I'm sure everybody there is vaccinated, and it's fine.
Well, we will tell ourselves that, but we are seeing a spike in cases in this country as well. So it is always advisable, if you do have tickets to a wrestling show or any show upcoming as we return to some semblance of normal, that you might want to check with the venue and check the situation prior to leaving for that show to see what restrictions they may have, what mandates they may have, and to make sure your event is actually still occurring. And Doug, by the way, you are frozen in a very happy, in a very, very happy way.
I love that. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
I love that. I hope it stays like that.
You look extremely pleasant right now. I'm very happy.
I like that. That's cool. Yeah. So yeah, it's the Wi-Fi mesh, man. It is not the best in this house right now, and I'm reluctant to repair it since I'm moving in the next few months. So I want to save a new elaborate mesh for the new house. So I'm just kind of limping along, and sometimes the connections just aren't what they should be. Oh, we have comments. Let me see if I can still control everything. There we go.
That's a perfect example. There is a reason why these wrestling shows that are just now starting up have thus far been in Florida and Texas and places that are have been a little looser overall with these sorts of mandates. And that is a practicality reason on behalf of the companies, because they're obviously trying to generate revenue and get as many people in the building and get back to touring as soon as possible. So it would not be surprising if touring schedules are mapped around either where there are outbreaks or where the mandates and the precautions might be a little more lax. So buyer beware, I guess, and be cautious. But yeah, thanks for that, Derek. It's definitely, we're not out of the woods. So again, cautionary tale. Related to the return of touring in the United States, because it is such a different environment and a different thing than pre-recording broadcast or broadcasting live without an audience, WWE actually mandated that every wrestler on the roster, it was mandatory, it didn't matter your position on the card, you had to report to the Performance Center for training. Going once a week and filming a TV show is a lot different than live touring and doing this on a night-to-night basis. It's been a long time for these men and women, and so WWE naturally wanted to get everyone back in and get their reps in, to get their cardio up, and practice once again what it's going to be like, the rigors you're going to have to put your body through for live touring. Unfortunately, during this mandatory training session, Bayley suffered an injury, and it has been reported that it's an unspecified, actually, leg injury, but it is a leg injury of some sort that's going to keep the talented Bayley on the shelf for approximately 9 months. And
Well,
obviously, that's
I thought I read that it was an actual ACL tear.
is it an ACL tear? That
That's
would,
that's what I read, which would make sense for like a 9 month
yeah,
absence. But and that sucks because well, it's Bailey,
it's bad.
and finally getting back in front of an audience. And I think it also puts her probably out of WrestleMania for next year now. So it'll be
Not,
two WrestleManias really in a row that she hasn't competed in.
that is a tough break for a lady who helped carry that division during
Yes.
the pandemic time. Her and Sasha, it can be argued, very much elevated and carried the women's division during that entire pandemic time. And so it's a shame that now that crowds are back, Bailey will not be there with her heel character that she's never really had much of an opportunity to do in front of an audience. So
Mm-hmm.
best of luck to Bailey. Get well soon. Obviously, her I Quit match that was originally scheduled for the pay-per-view this weekend is off. Instead, Bianca is going to now be defending that women's title tomorrow night on the first live in front of an audience edition of SmackDown, and Carmella is going to be the opponent for that one. In other news, TMZ was the very first to report that in the last, well, I guess it was a week and a half ago at this point, but TMZ reported that Jimmy Uso was arrested for a DUI following Monday Night Raw 2 weeks ago. He was pulled over in Pensacola, Florida, after reportedly blowing through a red light and then driving above the speed limit as well. The officers say that they smelled alcohol on his breath, and of course, he had to get out of the car, do a breathalyzer. He blew a .202, and on a second go around, it was a .205. The limit in Florida is a .08, so he was well over the limit. He was cited for speeding and running the red light, and of course, he was arrested for DUI. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time that Jimmy has had a run-in of this sort. In 2009, he was arrested, but eventually not found guilty by a jury for DUI. And then he was also arrested back in 2011 with a DUI. Reportedly, WWE officials are not happy about that, especially considering his prominent role in the Roman Reigns main event storyline ongoing on SmackDown so well right now. But thus far, there has been no indication that there will be any retribution or actions by the company taken against him.
What did you say? He's going to join Retribution now? What?
Yeah, Doug, you missed it. They have revived Retribution, and Jimmy Uso has been banished as a punishment for his DUI.
I mean, I hope he gets whatever help that he needs to battle these demons and get things straight. But and from a company standpoint, I think I get it that they just gloss over it on air. But I'd like to think that just your position on the card doesn't protect you from your own stupidity, but apparently it does.
Yeah, and I guess the idea of trying to rewrite around him, his actions would affect others' paydays and the general storytelling. But it's one thing to chalk it up to a bad mistake, but a mistake. But by the time you've had 3 of these on your record in less than 10 years, I agree with you that if there's an issue there that needs to be addressed, here's hoping he gets the help that he needs.
I mean, I think you can creatively, address this. I mean, you just have, the head of the table just lose it over him, making this mistake over and over. I mean, it certainly would not be the first time that WWE has turned a real life situation into an angle. So, but I guess they're going a different way with it, and whatever.
I actually expected that was exactly the way it was going to go down this past Friday night. I don't know about you, Doug, but there was some instances where it was kind of alluded to, and Roman seemed upset. Obviously, that's been sort of the storyline. He's been kind of upset with Jimmy and Jay both, really, and so I kind of thought they were going to go that direction, but they stopped just short, and maybe they're trying to wait to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, look at this guy here. Look how happy he is just to be talking about live wrestling.
I tell you, it was fine when we were talking live wrestling, but now that we're on some serious, heavy topics, I have to say, Doug, your reactions are kind of inappropriate.
Fortunately, this didn't happen during our Benoit show.
Oh, that's true. If you haven't seen the Chris Benoit show, thank you, folks, for your feedback on that. We got really good traction on that. The last live episode we'd had of the Two Bros Wrestling Show, but that is in the archives. But Doug was not this happy for that, rightfully so. Doug, we're going to transition to some more news here that's totally inappropriate for your reaction. But reports emerged recently that hardcore legend Terry Funk had to be placed into an assisted living facility. Tommy Dreamer contacted the Funker and provided some clarification after these stories initially broke, just to let everyone know that Terry was in good spirits and it wasn't nearly as dire as these news reports made it sound. However, it's still a pretty sad story for those of us with such fond memories and love for Terry Funk, that he is now apparently having to live in an assisted living situation, and hopefully it is a brief period of time, and that the hardcore legend can find his way home soon.
Man, a million years from now, two human beings are still going to be alive: Terry Funk and Keith Richards. Okay.
Terry is sort of the Keith Richards of professional wrestling.
He really is, man.
Which is why it was so hard to hear that the Funker was in an assisted living facility. You don't like. I mean, the man's in his 80s, which I believe he's in his 80s or just at 80, which is considering how he wrestled, that is amazing in and of itself.
Yes,
so get well soon, Terry Funk.
Absolutely.
If this past Sunday, folks, you were like me looking on Peacock for the Kevin Nash edition of the Broken Skull Sessions with Stone Cold, you were disappointed as I was. It was not to be found. It was set to premiere this Sunday, but the episode was pulled from the schedule without notice or without explanation. This is becoming a trend in the Peacock era of the network, because just the previous week, Lex Luger's Icons documentary was supposed to air. It was on the schedule. It had been promoted very heavily, and it was pulled at the last minute without explanation, and neither of those have still appeared. It would be easy, and my mind went there too, conspiracy theory thinking that, okay, Kevin Nash is pretty outspoken. Maybe he said some things that Vince wasn't so happy with, or in the case of Lex Luger, if you saw any of the previews for that documentary, they go there. They talk about, they had the 911 call where, Miss Elizabeth was found dead at Lex's home with a drug overdose. And so I thought maybe some of this darkness stuff, somebody like pulled the plug on these. Reports, though, have since emerged that it's less likely that is the cause, even though WWE has not said, because earlier in the summer there was an episode of Untold regarding the Nexus that was also pulled. The reports are that this really has a lot more to do with the layoffs that we have reported on extensively here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show, that they had in really their production and network division. So a lot of these things were produced in the can on the schedule, but supposedly because of all the turnover and the change and rolling up all these productions and TV departments, rolling them up into one division, that there's just a lot of miscommunication right now on Peacock and WWE's in trying to get things aligned. So I guess in some ways that's good news that these shows may still air, particularly if you're looking forward to them as I am. The Stone Cold podcast are always fantastic. So hopefully these debuts end up occurring. There's some talk that they might have wanted to save some of these to air after pay-per-views or times when they might have bigger audiences. But regardless, there is definitely some disconnect right now with Peacock and WWE.
Yeah, and there's some disconnect with Peacock and me too. I still have a problem. But maybe I'm trying to watch and log on to the wrong network.
Or I'm just saying, to the frozen man here, perhaps it's on your end.
Oh wow, this is a PG show, right?
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. Moving on. MLW is starting a women's division, and that is news in and of itself. But the big news with this is they announced this week MLW is to start a women's division with the co-founder of Shimmer. That's right. Dave Prazak has joined the league's Office of Wrestling Operations, and Prazak is recognized around the world as one of the foremost promoters of women's wrestling in the history of women's wrestling. And so, him spearheading a women's division for MLW, which is set to premiere this summer, is extremely good news for fans of women's wrestling. So, stay tuned for more on that. And reports are that Impact may be moving their TV production to Las Vegas. And this is interesting because significantly, Impact has quietly, at this point, going back to the old TNA Nashville Fairground days, has been around for nearly 20 years. And all of their TV production has either been in Nashville or in Orlando. So going outside of one of those two locations for regular production would be an interesting proposition. They have run Sam's Town there and have done well with one-offs, but getting a consistent crowd anywhere, it can be a bit of a challenge. So good luck to Impact. If in fact that happens, we'll keep you updated here. And then finally, we're going to end with some sort of personal and personnel sort of news. Seth and Becky got married since we last had a show, so congratulations to Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. Cody and Brandy Rhodes had their baby girl. Congrats to them. Jon Moxley and Renee Young also welcomed a baby girl. Congrats to them. And Ronda Rousey and her husband announced that they are having a baby girl also. So congrats to all of these folks celebrating these personal milestones. So definitely want to give our congratulations to the men and women that we cheer on our TV screens for what's really going on in the real life.
And look how happy I am about all that news.
Well, again, king of transitions here, Doug. I'm going to bring you down and say, and finally, in sad news, despite Doug's reaction, yes, folks, we lost a wrestling legend this week.
Yes, we did.
Paul, Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, headliner in the very first main event of WrestleMania 1, passed away at the age of 71, which is way too soon. Doug, what memories do you have of Mr. Wonderful?
Man, it's one of those things where Mr. Wonderful is one of my first wrestling memories. It's just the Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff. That name is everywhere. I can't even pull like this memory or that memory or this match or that match. It's just like that man permeated my childhood of my wrestling memories.
Yeah, I like you. I think he would have been amongst the first group of wrestlers I saw. I'm sort of torn and trying to think back to the childhood memory as to if I got my first dose as being Mid-Atlantic wrestling or if it was Georgia Championship Wrestling. I believe it was probably Georgia Championship Wrestling, the old Gordon Soley edition. And that would have been early 80s for me, and Paul Orndorff was a big part of that promotion at that time. I remember, Doug, that, especially back in those days when a lot of very, I shouldn't say regular looking guys. A lot of these were, extraordinarily large, but they weren't all you had a lot of beer guts and things like that. For his time, Mr. Wonderful kind of stood out. Not a lot of guys were ripped in the way that he is ripped. That's more commonplace now. It wasn't so much back then, and he really stood out because of that. And I also remember really thinking that the pile driver was the most dangerous move in all of professional wrestling, just for the way that Paul, Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, was able to sell that fact to an audience. He would get somebody in that pile driver, and that was the 1, 2, 3. You just knew the end was here. And so, yes, very sad news. Obviously, he went on to even greater acclaim when he went to WWE or WWF at the time, and associated himself with Rowdy Roddy Piper, and was a main eventer there for a long time. So very, very sad. And I'm getting a text from Doug that's saying that he's lost all audio, but he can still see me. So, Doug, I'm going to tell you, try see if Doug can log off and then maybe back on, because I'm figuring if he can't see me, if he can't hear me, you all probably still can, and it's probably on his end is what my thought is on that. So let's give him a second here. compelling television. Okay, it looks like he has logged off, which is good that he was able to do that and would be able to come back on. So, if you're watching this on replay, in the comments, leave us some memories of Paul Orndorff. Would love to read that. I love reading, particularly about anything with the wrestlers from my childhood. So if you had any particular memories of Paul, Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, I'd love to hear them. So that is the opening bell. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, it looks like we got Doug getting ready to rejoin us just in time for the main event. Oh, he's there-ish. He's gone. Oh, we'll let him work through that, folks, and I'll go ahead and set up a couple of these matches. It is elimination. I'm sorry. It is Money in the Bank on Sunday. Doug's got me flustered. It's Money in the Bank on Sunday, and it is Money in the Bank in front of a live audience, the first live crowd that WWE has had since WrestleMania, and the first time they're doing this as a touring organization again since pre-pandemic, or well, I guess pre-shutdown, early days of the pandemic. We're talking like March of 2020. So that touring begins tomorrow night with SmackDown, and that goes all the way through at least the end of September is what they currently have now, which is several months worth of shows, culminating, as I mentioned at the top of our broadcast, with a pay-per-view coming out of Columbus, Ohio. So this is the last stop on the road to SummerSlam, which, of course, being in front of an audience also, and the second biggest pay-per-view they have on their calendar other than WrestleMania, they're really going to be pulling out all the stops to push hard over the next month for a big SummerSlam in front of a live and raucous crowd. And that begins on Sunday with Money in the Bank. So we want to start with the undercard. There's currently 6 matches scheduled. First, we have a tag team match for the WWE Raw Tag Team Championships. And that has your champions, AJ Styles and Omos, taking on the Viking Raiders. And they've set this one up over the last couple of weeks, and where we've seen more of Omos as a singles competitor, which of course is new. And Omos took on one of the Viking Raiders, and AJ Styles in a separate match took on another. So they've been building this tension between these two teams for a while. The Viking Raiders really are returning. Ivar had been out with injury, so I think that this is, a way to get their feet back wet. I do like the Viking Raiders. I've never cared for that name. Was much better when they were on NXT and didn't get saddled with the Viking gimmick. But still, they're extremely talented. However, I don't see at this point in time that AJ Styles and Omos are going to lose the belts, at least not at this pay-per-view. Maybe this continues on to SummerSlam. That has been building for a while, but since this is really going to be their first meeting, it's very possible that they find a way to stretch this out into a bigger and longer program on SummerSlam. So my prediction for this is AJ Styles and Omos retain, and maybe not. Maybe they don't do so fair and square, but they do hold on to those titles. Then you have for the Raw Women's Championship, which now is going to be the only championship women's title up for grabs on Sunday. But Rhea Ripley is going to be defending that championship against Charlotte Flair. And this is sort of a do-over, really, of their Hell in a Cell contest. And that took place last month, and quite honestly, if you watched our review show afterwards, we both were pretty disappointed in the way that one shook out. Both women are extremely talented, but they gave us a very cheap finish where Flair intentionally got herself disqualified after a match that really was over before it had a chance to get rolling and get started in a very positive fashion. So I would think that they knew they underwhelmed last time with the cheap finish, and that they would try to give us a lot more this go around. But you never know. This is obviously two big names. They may wish to stretch this out for, to get this on SummerSlam also. In a way, I would kind of be happy if they do have it going towards SummerSlam. I mean, they kept Drew and Bobby Lashley going for months and months and months after we thought it was decided. So I think they could still give us a full match, a clean finish, and still do a SummerSlam contest with these two ladies if they would like and choose to do so. So whatever happens on Sunday, let's make it clean. Let's make it decisive. Let's give the fans what they want, and that's these two women going all out and putting on a show for us. And to that end, last month I predicted that Charlotte Flair was going to walk away with the title, and because of the disqualification, that didn't happen. So I'm going to double down and say that it happens this month. If it doesn't, and I'm wrong again, then it's going to happen at SummerSlam. I think the destiny right now is that Rhea Ripley, for all her talent, in my mind anyway, hasn't caught on the main roster quite the way that she was at NXT. And Vince and the agents love them some Charlotte Flair for good reason. And I believe that Charlotte gets that belt back, and we see if we can get more out of Rhea with her doing a chase than we do right now with her as a champion. So my prediction is, if this one has an actual finish and someone walks away with the title and not in a DQ or count out or any sort of cop out fashion, it's going to be Charlotte Flair. And that would make her a 16-time, I do believe, women's world heavyweight champion, which will tie her father, who's the 16-time men's champion and generally regarded as the most decorated world champion of all time. Obviously, this is a storyline that writes itself, with the daughter right on the cusp of doing the same. It's going to happen at some point in time. I say it might as well happen on this show. And then that takes us to, before we get to the world title contest, let's talk Money in the Bank. 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, one for the men, one for the women, on this Sunday's broadcast. We'll start with the women's title or the women's Money in the Bank challenge first, because we just were talking the women's championship. Obviously, the winner of this match will have the right to challenge either the Raw or the SmackDown champion, which adds an added element of mystique, I guess, as to who that victor may be and the opportunities they have to start a new feud somewhere. But a lot of times with the Money in the Bank, and it's probably going to be the case for both of these, you don't see immediate returns on someone cashing in. It's happened on occasion, but in general, they use these for storyline purposes to build someone up, maybe that needed reheated or maybe just needed heated to begin with. And this is a way that they can have them tease cashing in that Money in the Bank briefcase for months and months and months, oftentimes, because you have up to a year in order to cash in on your title opportunity. So on the women's side of things, we have Asuka, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Nikki, Liv Morgan, Zelina Vega, Natalia, and one more individual that has yet to be announced. And so knowing that these are competitors, I imagine that there might be an opportunity tomorrow night on SmackDown for that to be decided, to maybe be a Carmella, if when she doesn't walk away with the title from Bianca. So that might be the surprise entrance that's still left to come. Obviously, all the women in this match are talented. I expect it's going to be a great contest. There's, even though this is at this point probably the 4th or 5th, I suppose, Money in the Bank that women have been involved in, it's still a rarity compared to what the men have had an opportunity to do in the past. So I know all these ladies will be very motivated to put on the best show they possibly can. And looking at the potential victors in this, I mean, Asuka's extremely talented, been around for a while, been around that championship scene for a while, and same for Naomi. Alexa Bliss has her own sort of thing going on right now with her her fiendish gimmick, if you will. Um, I think that the returning Zelina Vega is very interesting. Very happy to see Zelina. I know they've been rumored that she was going to be making a return, but there were some folks that thought with her husband leaving for AEW that there's a chance that she would not come back to WWE, considering she was unceremoniously fired earlier this year. But she did make her return to the company. I think she has a good showing. I don't think she wins here either. I'm going to make a prediction of someone who really has not had a run at the top of the women's card, but Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan she caught my eye down in her NXT days when she was playing a very different version of her character. And she's been on the main roster and has kind of been through it, been through a couple of factions that once they imploded, a lot of the former teammates she had have exited the company, and little Liv continues on and has been a great soldier in doing anything that is asked of her. And here lately, she has been more front and center than she has been in some time. Been very much in the storylines on SmackDown of her earning her way into this match, but being denied, and was at the last minute added just on the last edition of SmackDown after having singles victories over several of the women who were also included. And so I would love if Liv Morgan actually got a chance to be around that title and be around the women's main event scene. And I'm going to predict that Liv Morgan is going to be your Money in the Bank winner, and maybe a bit of a surprise. I think the briefcase is going to help add an extra dimension to a character that is to me shown a lot over the last month or two that maybe that WWE is ready to invest in. Too bad Doug is fell off the call because I wanted to ask him what he thought of the Nikki Cross character. And for those of you who haven't maybe been watching regularly and have just tuned in and wondered what in the world is Nikki Cross up to and why are they calling her Nikki Ash? And yes, if you're an old school fan, if it reminds you of the old Mighty Molly gimmick, you are not alone. That's exactly what I thought as well, is that this is very reminiscent of Molly Holly and the accidental superhero sort of thing. So I like Nikki. I like her a lot, in fact, but don't know that I'm that crazy about that gimmick. But they do seem committed to it. She's getting airtime, so I'm certainly not going to fault anything that gets a talent more airtime than what they were getting. And so you make the most of what you're given. There is a chance, because they seem invested in this character. I would say that if it's not Liv, who is maybe my sentimental favorite, I think that there is a good chance, because of the character build they've been doing for Nikki with this superhero bit, that it's her that walks away with that Money in the Bank contract. But we'll see on Sunday if I'm right about Liv. The men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Those participants are Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, Drew McIntyre, Big E, Kevin Owens, King Nakamura, and Seth Rollins. And there's main event talent abounding in this. Obviously, Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre are both main eventers. John Morrison in previous incarnations and companies has been a world champion. Matt Riddle is quickly moving up the card. Kevin Owens is a former world champion. King Nakamura, Shinsuke has been a champ in New Japan and NXT. Ricochet is an interesting choice for this match, just because Ricochet has not exactly been treated well on the main roster during his time there. Big E is an up-and-comer and someone that I think that WWE thinks a lot of. So there's many ways they could go with this. Do you go with the established name? I don't think they do. in this instance. And by established name, I mean an established main eventer. I don't think a Seth Rollins needs it, obviously. I don't think a Drew McIntyre needs it. And Drew McIntyre holding the Money in the Bank would put him back in the realm of the world title scene, which he had been at for so long now that it's probably time for him to move on and do something else before he gets back in that title picture again, if you really want to keep the Drew character fresh. So I don't think anyone's necessarily chomping at the bit, as good as the matches were, to see yet another Drew versus Bobby match. We want to see what Bobby does next. And so unless Drew was to take win that ladder match and then take that briefcase over to SmackDown, then you're talking something completely different. But we're not going there. I think that with this, you got John Morrison and Ricochet there to do some crazy ladder spots, which they will no doubt do. Kevin Owens will probably hurt himself real bad a time or two as well. And I think at the end of the day, I'm going with Riddle on this one. I believe that Riddle, with the Money in the Bank, would be, oh my goodness.
I'm back. And I'm not frozen. I'm frozen. No. Oh, I'm frozen. Okay.
And that is our show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Everybody.
For the two brothers. Doug, I'll catch you up real quick. We've gone through a couple of matches on the lower card, but we're on the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Who is your prediction for who do you think is going to win? It's Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, Drew McIntyre, Big E, Kevin Owens, King Nakamura, and Seth Rollins.
Big E. I'm going for Big E.
So, Doug, Big E is probably you're picking Big E for a very similar reason that I am picking Riddle. I was telling the folks at home, I don't see that a Seth Rollins or Drew McIntyre need this gimmick, world title match in their pocket. They're main eventers already.
Yep.
I think that Riddle and Big E are both in a very similar situation on their respective brands as being that next guy they want to get up to that level. And I think that obviously Money in the Bank and that briefcase is one way of doing so.
Yeah, and Ricochet and Morrison will be there they'll be the spot jockeys for Money in the Bank. I think they're both incredibly talented individuals, but they're going to be the guys there to bring off the big spots.
That's exactly what I told the folks too. Same thing. Those are the guys that are going to make everyone else look like $1 million. The talent in this match speaks for itself. It should be a good one. I think with Riddle, you obviously got the Randy Orton thing kind of hanging in the background, and that this could play into that somehow. I think Big E also be an excellent choice. So, tune in Sunday, folks, to see which one of us is right. Doug, I'll backtrack real quick just to the women's match. Who do you think's got that one?
Hold on a second here. Let me pull up and let's see who's in the women's match here. Asuka, not Ahsoka. Naomi Bliss. Asuka? I don't see any.
I went with Liv Morgan, just because I think that she's almost in that Tamina role of, like, I've been around a long time. All of my friends are no longer with the company, and I'm still here doing every character you throw at me. And they've actually featured her quite a bit in the last few weeks, earning her way by beating some of these other women. So I went Liv Morgan, but obviously I love me some Asuka, so I wouldn't complain about that. But these matches are hard. These multi-person matches are hard to predict, so there's a very good chance that we're wrong on these.
We'll see, I guess.
Doug, we are actually then to the two main event matches, the two men's contests. Do you have a preference which you want to talk about first?
You call it, brother. Which one are we going with?
So I'm going to go with the WWE Championship, and that is your champion Bobby Lashley with MVP versus Kofi Kingston with Xavier Woods. Obviously, the storyline behind this one is the sort of come down feud of Bobby Lashley spending months and months and months and months and months in a really good contest, but still months and months and months and months with Drew McIntyre. So this is something for Bobby to do that takes him, I think, to the next opponent. And that's no offense against Kofi as any sort of transition. I loved Kofi Mania. If it ends up being Kofi Mania 2, I would not object to seeing that because he's so great. They even tease that it could be a possibility. They're trying to make you think it by having Xavier Woods actually defeat Lashley on Raw clean this past week, which was really shocking. But at the end of the day, Bobby Lashley's got bigger fish to fry, don't you think?
Bobby Lashley's going to carry that title through to SummerSlam.
Yeah. So we're in agreement on this one that it's not Lashley's time. And Doug, did you happen to see Raw this past week?
I did not catch Raw. No.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Lashley at the end showed an amazing fire. I think the best character work I've seen him do yet to show that he's really growing into this championship reign. If there's been a knock on him in the past, is that he's not a great talker. And that's why MVP, who's a really good talker, is with him. Well, not so this week. Lashley took the mic and he got rid of the girls and the champagne and all the frivolousness that he's been surrounded with, and blew up at MVP for it's time to get serious. I shouldn't have been losing to someone like Xavier Woods, and I'm going to go out there and mutilate and end the career of Kofi Kingston. And I mean, he's tossing furniture around. And of course, MVP, being great, was selling it like $1 million too, as if he was genuinely frightened that this man was, imploding in front of him. But Lashley showed that if anyone thinks that he can't work the mic, that they are wrong when properly inspired. So I think it'll be a great contest. But that leads us to what is the main event, and the one that might have a little more intrigue to it, because this was supposed to be our WrestleMania match, Doug. This Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Edge was, for months, from Royal Rumble up until like 2 or 3 weeks before WrestleMania. We thought this was our WrestleMania main event, this one-on-one. Then Bryan Danielson inserted himself in the mix, or Daniel Bryan, I guess, character name. But yeah, Doug, what do you think about this? Are you excited to see this one-on-one finally happening?
I'm kind of indifferent to this. I think, Reigns is going to come out on top. I think Edge will be great in putting him over in a singles match. But, I still think Reigns is coming out on top, because just like Edge or just like Bobby Lashley, the champ is retaining here and going on to SummerSlam is something very, very big. You're going to get a really big pop out of Edge in front of a live audience and everything. But Edge has had his time. The Tribal Chief is carrying SmackDown, and I think probably all of WWE programming right now, and they're going to push that on through to SummerSlam with the story as is.
So if Roman Reigns retains, and I agree with you that he will, do you think then that the drama in this, the suspense in this one is, will he or won't he, Roman's next opponent, reveal himself?
Yes. Yeah, I think that is coming. That is coming.
Do you think it's coming on Sunday?
You know what? It would be great for storyline, but I think about the network programming and network involvement. I think you're not going to get any big surprises like we want to see. I don't think that's going to happen. You're going to get, especially with the heavy network interaction and the network actually pitching ideas to the WWE at this point to get ratings back up. They're going to heavily promote something. So I mean, well, maybe something could go on Peacock, but I think we're going to see something Friday on SmackDown on Fox before NBC gets it.
So stay tuned, folks, because the way that we have it laid out, it doesn't look like Doug and I are thinking a whole lot is going to shift in the title picture. And Doug, I don't want to do too much retracking for the people watching, but I will, just because of the fact that we haven't predicted much in the way title changes. Real quick, women's match, championship that's on the line. Is it going to be Charlotte taking that away from Rhea? Does Rhea retain?
I think Rhea might lose.
Okay, so this is another one we're in agreement on. I wanted to go back and touch that one again. Didn't want to spend a lot of time since we covered it earlier when you had dropped off. But I wanted to see if you thought that if anything's going to change on this night, if that's the one that's going to change. I agree.
Think so.
Yeah, I believe you and I both predicted it last month when they gave us the cop out finish. So I think that finish we thought was happening last month happens this month, and then
Yeah.
we'll see what is in store for Charlotte at SummerSlam because there's we have some possible returns in the
There's
women's
a return there too.
several
Absolutely.
to build to that really big SummerSlam event they're wanting to have. That's going to really have more of a feel of a WrestleMania this year, and that's Money in the Bank, folks. And thank you for sticking with us through our technical difficulties Sunday night and then
And
again
tonight.
tonight. Hopefully we have no storms on Sunday. Rick Boogs doesn't show up at Doug's house, ready to party because Doug can't resist that. Doug goes all Pat McAfee when he sees Rick Boogs, and it's just over.
Yeah.
Doug, with that, you want to hit the big finish, my friend?
If I can, hold on. Banners. Big finish. There we go.
Big finish. What's your botch of the week, Doug?
It's a bunch from last week, but I just got to say, I think it's hilarious, and we didn't talk about this earlier, that WWE forgot to update Tommy and Aleister Black's contract from a 30-day no-compete NXT contract to a 90-day main roster no-compete clause when they upgraded him, so that would allow him to debut on AEW last week. I think that is the biggest botch that there could possibly be. And I think it's also hilarious that they weren't sure who they had even botched this on, since I've read and seen Buddy Murphy talking about how WWE was calling him going, hey, your contract, we can extend that to a full 90-day no-compete clause. We'll keep paying you. And he's like, yeah, it already is a full 90 days. And I'm like, okay, great. We got to move on. I mean, come on. Maybe they should have retained some of those people they've been cutting recently.
Well, when you consider the last batch of releases included folks getting their belongings in trash bags, I'm thinking that the exit interview process at WWE could use some revisions.
How about you?
My botch of the week, and it pains me to say anything negative about Jim Ross. JR is one of the best to ever do it. He is one of the best to ever do it. But since we last had one of these big finishes, it was a couple of rough weeks for good old JR.
Yeah.
When you end the last show before you go on tour by saying there's nothing like catching WWE Dynamite, and I'm like, oh no. And this comes less than 5-6 months after him referring to Kenny Omega as the WWE Heavyweight Champion.
Hey man, those old habits die hard.
The man lived there for decades, so I can understand it on live TV. It would be difficult, but how much your employer. And then that last week, he referred to Excalibur as Mark.
He did.
On the broadcast. I'm like, Mark. And I'm having to look it up. I'm like, I'm presuming that must be Excalibur's name. Sure enough, it's Excalibur's real name. I wasn't sure what Excalibur's real name was, but you're not going to get rid of JR. He is the voice of a generation. He is the Howard Cosell of wrestling. I know that for older folks like Doug and I, that was Gordon Solie to begin with. But JR definitely has that mantle. I think you keep him there just because he is who he is. But at some point, your employer is going to have to give you a talking to if you keep calling the product WWE this, or calling people by their real names and not their character names. Those are some pretty bad mistakes.
Of course, we could always say it's all the work, and it just generates more buzz about the product.
I think Tony is probably going to be a little easier going about such things than Vince McMahon. You could guarantee that, if this had happened under Vince's watch, there would have already been we're going in a different direction, pal. And JR would have found himself, hosting 205 Live or something.
Right.
So good luck, JR. Put in the work, my friend. Performance of the week, Doug. What's your performance of the week?
You know what, man? This will come as no surprise, but I'm really loving what is going on, and I still stand by my bold prediction that I made earlier this year, that Hangman takes that title from Omega after kicking out of a one-winged angel. But I just love the way that they have just positioned everything, and kudos to everybody involved in this long-term storytelling. That's wrestling at its finest right there, the way that that whole thing is just building back around, finally coming to fruition. But
And I don't know if that was by design or some by just beautiful happenstance, because maybe they wanted it to go as long as they've been building it, or maybe they were trying to stretch it until they got it back in front of fans. Either way, the timing couldn't be more perfect, that they're back in front of touring crowds and the crowds are so hot, ready to see this change occur.
mhm.
They're going to be able to print money when they book that one.
I mean, you have got one of the most obnoxious hills in professional wrestling, and one of the most obnoxious. I can't even say the word. It's
Well, this is not Oscar.
the faction is so incredibly annoying. You just want to see them lose. And when Hangman does take that belt, wherever they are when it happens, the roof is coming off that place. So kudos to them for putting this all together.
So my performance of the week is Bandito. Bandito is the new Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion. He defeated Roosh at the Best in the World pay-per-view on Sunday night. And I'm not just giving him this Performer of the Week because of the great match that the two of them had on pay-per-view in front of a live crowd, but excuse me, I'm choked up over Bandito's performance. Bandito is one of the best under-the-radar talents out there. A few years ago, he was the target of a bidding war, and WWE actually gave him a very lucrative deal that he passed up in order to have more creative freedom. Ring of Honor ended up picking up his contract and signing him for what was reportedly the most lucrative offer they ever gave any performer. And so there's been a lot of hindsight coaching here, that it was a terrible deal, because up to this point you couldn't at all say that it's lived up to the amount of money they put into it. They were wanting him to be the center of, their division, and they were trying to shore him up with all this money. And then you had the Marty Scurll scandal, which affected the writing team. And then you had the pandemic, where everything just gets shut down, and then Bandito just floating around in the mid card. And so it would have been easy to look at it in retrospect and say, they wasted a lot of money, because the Ring of Honor product, when AEW and things came around, a lot of folks defected. And so Ring of Honor was a strong number 2 at one point, and now they may be, Impact might have even have lapped them. I mean, they may be considered 3rd or 4th. So it'd been easy to say that they kind of sunk the ship by putting too much money into Bandito. However, they've persevered. They've had some good shows since they restarted, even without crowds. The re-upping of the reintroduction of the Pure division, and now Bandito finally living up to that promise and getting his opportunity with the company's title, to see if they can build this company around him. Again, if you're not familiar and you're only watching WWE's product, folks, this is one of the most talented wrestlers in the world right now. His finisher off the top is a thing to behold. He is an amazing talent, and congratulations to Bandito, your new ROH World Champion. Hopefully this is just the start of a Bandito era and a resurgence of Ring of Honor.
Nice.
Match of the week.
Man, I really enjoyed that Darby Allin Ethan Page match. I mean, I'm sure it's no surprise that my picks are coming from Dynamite, but I mean that was some good stuff. Darby is always the kid who's going to go out there and just find new ways for me to make me cringe and go, "Oh my God, what is he doing?" But I think this was the Ethan Page debut that we've been waiting for. I think here we officially now announce Ethan Page is all elite with that match.
And what folks may not know, if they haven't followed these two men's backstories and their time on the indies, is that apparently, and this was pre me ever seeing either one of them, but apparently Darby and Ethan had a extremely long and intense feud on the independent circuit for years before Darby made it to AEW, and years before Ethan made it to Impact and made their names for themselves. So I think all of that time that they worked together really showed in that match, because they got chemistry. They got major chemistry. And I agree, that was a coming out party. And yeah, that Razor's Edge from the top rope onto the metal stairs. I mean, oh my gosh. Yeah, makes me go ouch too.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going back, since we didn't have a show on Sunday. I'm counting the last 2 weeks. I'm going back actually to the Great American Bash of 2 weeks ago, and calling Cole O'Reilly 2 my match of the last 2 weeks. You really can't go wrong with either of these choices. But folks, if you didn't catch that one, you have to. I know their first contest was way more high profile, being as it was headlining NXT Takeover during WrestleMania weekend. But I'll say it, this one was better. In my mind, it was no bells and whistles, no gimmicks like the one they had at Takeover, which maybe to some people's taste was a little too long, and it was weapons and that sort of thing. These two guys are two of the best wrestlers in the world, and last Tuesday night they wrestled, and now they're 1-1. So I'm hoping that we get on a bigger stage on the Takeover with crowd maybe in there to enjoy it, a live paying audience. We get Cole O'Reilly 3. If so, we are the victors in this one. But that was my match of the week.
Awesome.
And with that, Doug, we're right at an hour.
Kevin, thanks for carrying the show through the technical difficulties.
Folks, you don't have to wait so long. 3 more days, and we'll be back on your computer.
Because it won't end. I mean, there's not a lot of matches on that card, but it's still 10, 30-ish. It seems to be what we're hitting with our WWE pay-per-views on a pay-per-view night. So.
Yeah, those Money in the Bank multi-person matches probably will extend things out a little bit. So after the pay-per-view, tune in, and we'll give you our reviews, and you can see if Doug makes it, if he has power, if he freezes up, if he drops off. Make your predictions on not just the matches. Make your predictions on that. What happens to Doug? Leave it in the comments.
All right, everybody. We will see you Sunday night. Maybe.
Sunday.
See ya.